The modern diet has made our faces less attractive, and I'm not just going to talk about nutrients, I'm not even going to get into that rabbit hole. I'm going to look at this from a completely different perspective that no one even considers, which is structural health. The way that we chew, the way that we swallow, the way that we breathe, and our posture also mechanically dictate the way that our facial structures develop, the way that our tongue rests against the roof of the mouth, and therefore how attractive we become. Obviously, consuming the correct food with enough vitamins, minerals, and micronutrients is fundamental. However, this is something that no one considers, which directly affects your attractiveness, your longevity, your health, and everything of that sort. I spent years interning at actual myofunctional institutes, experimenting and testing everything on myself to the point where I managed to completely develop my jaw upwards and forwards, naturally straighten my nose, align my asymmetry, expand my palate, widen my cheekbones, improve the support under my eyes, straighten my crooked teeth, fix my overbite, treat my asthma, my forward head posture, my bruxism, my TMJ, my sleep apnea. Yes, I was cooked beforehand, but I managed to fix it all naturally, and now I've even helped thousands of other people do the exact same thing. Cue the transformations, and I'm even launching my own scientific research project with other professionals this year. So without further ado, how is this video going to benefit you? Well, you're going to learn exactly how you can positively impact your facial structure and attractiveness at any age. I'm going to break it down in a few simple steps. What you need to realize about the modern diet is first and foremost, we are chewing softer and softer food, preventing the jaw from developing through something called mechanotransduction through proper chewing. And this is step one. You can see this in Native Americans, how their facial structures have become less developed, and also the shift with their diets from a traditional diet to a more modern, processed, grain-based diet. Obviously, we can talk about nutrients, but you also need to consider that when you're younger and when you're ripping food, you're also opening up the maxillary sutures, and then you're chewing that food with your premolars, and you're going to generate something called counterclockwise rotation, which is the way that the face develops upwards and forwards. And you can see in this animation, when the face develops upwards and forwards, not only does the jaw come up, but the mid face comes up, there's more support under your eyes, and everything else shifts into alignment. And this is further backed up when you look at the width of our palates. Our ancestors had 50mm palates, whereas someone in the modern world has an average palate size of less than 35mm. This is not luck, this is lack of mechanical stimulus, not just nutrients, not just sunlight, not just all of these other things, which every health person on social media will talk about, which are obviously important, but everyone still neglects this mechanical stimulus, this structural health aspect. When you chew and generate that force, when the mandible shifts further forward, you also activate things like proprioception, which is the way that your body is able to sense alignment with the jaw, and the jaw will cascade throughout the entire body because it's connected through things like the superficial front line, and it's even connected down to your spine all the way down to your feet. So you need to be chewing harder foods, and this is the biggest mistake that people make. And when you look at the Native Americans, for example, which are a brilliant culture, by the way, and I'm not focusing on any kind of disrespect to anyone, I'm just highlighting the observations that I'm making. But if you wanted to return back to the original brilliant bone structures that they once had, it wouldn't just be as simple as chewing harder food when you're 25 years old. You cannot just erase time and act as if you had perfect diet and habits from birth. What you can do is work with the body to become the version that it was always meant to be. You can activate the correct muscles, you can provide this stimulus to open up the lymphatic pathways and the sutures, which are always adaptable at any age, to the point where if you are able to create a proper routine, if you're able to work with your body correctly, then you can open up these sutures, make chewing more effective, make your bone structure more malleable, and actually slowly make genuine progress. So you need to work with the body, you need to do myofunctional exercises, you need to begin slowly loosening the fascia and all of these things, and this is the key. And you can see this with all of these client transformations on the screen, where I've transformed thousands of people, many of which are over the age of 25, and there's even more over the age of 60. These people were able to make genuine progress, not because they just started chewing harder foods, but release the tension and trauma that they developed from bad habits. And then when you relearn how to chew, when you relearn how to activate these proper muscles, long term, you will actually be back on the right track. That is what you need to understand, and it's the most important thing in my transformation. And by the way, if you do want more information, if you do want to understand more about this specifically and create a proper routine to realize the fact that we were never meant to have crooked teeth, we were never meant to have recessed jaws, we were never meant to have many of the health issues that we suffer from in the modern day, you can join the private community. The link is in the description, and there should also be a QR code on the screen. You can join, get accountability, get more routine, speak with me directly, and crush it. But moving on to step two, because it's not just about chewing, but you also need to realize how the modern diet has also pushed consumerism and bad products upon us. Now babies are being formula fed rather than breastfed, and again, I'm not a parent, I'm not a mother. I have utmost respect to anyone that is a parent, and I'm not trying to tell anyone what to do. But if it is possible, it is fundamental that a baby is breastfed, because this allows a proper suction. This allows the tongue to shift against the palate in peristaltic movements. It allows a proper suction to be created, and it allows the tongue to gently rest against the roof of the mouth, encouraging a proper lip seal, which means the mouth is closed and nasal breathing is activated, and encouraging proper structural support. Your tongue is the most underrated aspect of your body, and no one understands it. They will talk about everything else other than the tongue, which is the basis of which the face develops from birth in the first place. And by the way, you can even watch my video with the founder of mewing himself, tongue posture, Dr. Mike Mew. I've done multiple videos with him if you want to understand more information. He's an absolute legend. But yes, babies are no longer breastfed, they're formula fed, and formula fed bottles will have tiny little air gaps, which will prevent a proper suction from being formed because it requires less pressure to consume the milk. And it's not just about nutrients, it is about the suction that is created, allowing the tongue to learn proper swallowing later in life. You'll see many people in the modern world that don't chew their food properly, that have overdeveloped buccinator and cheek muscles due to improper swallowing, due to the tongue not resting on the roof of the mouth, due to it not being able to create enough pressure. And this is why you'll see many people later in life with tongue ties. If you say the letter T like this, and you'll most likely have a tongue tie, restricting the tongue from applying enough pressure. And all of this cascades and gets worse and worse from birth when a child isn't breastfed. And this is one of the other divergences from the modern diet. And you can see this with many traditional cultures and the development of their palates and teeth, and the work of Dr. Weston Price looking at these traditional cultures versus industrial modern populations and how differently their jaws were developed and their palates and their teeth. And remember, the palate is the foundation of the face. If your tongue doesn't rest above it, the rest of the facial structure will collapse. And this is why there are such big correlations between athletes and facial development, between places like blue zones and facial development. Health is looks. When you chew properly, breathe properly, swallow properly, have proper posture, when you consume the proper food, not only do you get nutrients, but you're creating the mechanical stimulus for your face to develop, for your body to develop in the proper proportion. When you breathe better, you live longer, you funnel air more efficiently, you won't get sleep apnea, which increases all rates of mortality by 4x. You minimize things like asthma, with which I treated myself naturally, and your entire quality of life becomes better. This is a massive thing that everyone's neglecting. There are so many great influences in the health space, but no one is talking about structural health. Myofunctional therapy, these things are the foundation of a healthy face. If you want more information, if you want to learn more, you can join the private community. Link is in the description. Check it out. I know it will help a lot of you. And remember, health is looks.